Hi, I'm Jean Schumacher, founder of the Weight Loss Advantage and my main website, Simply Plant Based. And you can find my programs on Simply Plant Based. I also have a continuing education program for people that are already plant based but need a little bit more help. Tonight, I have with me an amazing woman who has also undergone a huge transformation. Her name's Sandra McClanahan. And I want to say thank you very much for being here tonight and sharing your journey with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been really looking forward to this. I appreciate it.
Me too. I know we connected at the National Health Association conference, and
Twice.
I know. And I'll be going there for the rest of my life. That's what an
Yeah.
amazing conference, right?
hmm Last year when I saw him, like, oh my God, it's just, I couldn't believe it. I'm seeing all of my YouTube people there, walking around. I'm
Right.
like, this is like celebrity city here. And so it was really cool.
Well, thank you, but I just make videos, and just connect with
No.
people that are making some really good thing happen in their life. And,
hmm
what, before you went plant-based, what health
hmm
issues were you dealing with?
As a young child, I was chubby. And then I became overweight, in high school and in college. And then after I got married, I became obese. And then I became morbidly obese after my children were born. I have two sons in their 20s. Obesity was one of my biggest obstacles, one of my biggest health concerns, because it affected me emotionally, it affected me physically. I was uncomfortable even trying to sleep at night. So that was one of the big forefront issues. But in addition to simply being morbidly obese, by the way, I had gotten up to 252. I'm 5'2", and I was up to 252 at my highest known weight. When I saw the scale hit 252, I put it away. I put it up on a shelf in the laundry room and did not take it down again for at least 2 years. But one day in 2015, in late 2015, I thought, how am I not diabetic already? That was always in the back of my mind, being obese, morbidly obese. My father had diabetes, type 2. He died of colon cancer, so I also have cancer, several different cancers in my family. My brother is a type 1 diabetic. And how was I not diabetic? And one day I was in my classroom. I'm a Spanish teacher, and I was always drinking water. Like I would buy the Snapple bottles, and once I drank it, then I would wash them and use them every day, like 5 or 6. I'd go fill them up every morning, and I blamed my extreme thirst on that I talk all the time. I'm a teacher. I talk, so I'm thirsty. And so one day I took a big swig of water. I set my bottle down and I went to speak to the class, and my mouth went cotton dry just like that. And I thought, I'm thirsty all the time. Now, look at me. I just took a swig of water and I'm already thirsty just in a split second. I believe I have become a diabetic. And all day I was scared about it. And I went home immediately after work that day and I Googled diabetic diet. And so that was one of the things for me, was the fear that I had either become a pre-diabetic or a diabetic. But additionally, I had migraines. I have had migraines for many, many years. And also,
Now, did you have
Charlie horse.
migraines? Did you start migraines like when you were a kid, or did you have them just start them?
I think that they were somewhere in my 20s when I started getting them. I don't remember having them as a teenager, but I believe it was around in the 20s, maybe early 30s, that I began to get regular migraines. And they were not the kind where you like see hallucinations or you black out. They were just the throbbing, throb kind. I still, like if I were at work and got one, I was able to get home, but it was a challenge. And the whole drive, I'm like, and I'd make it home, and then I couldn't, if I got one in the middle of the night, I could not stay horizontal. I would have to get up, get a washcloth and wet it, and go to my recliner. I'd have to be reclined, and I'd put the wet washcloth, and I would flip it every few minutes, and I'd lie there for about 2 hours, and just whenever I'd wake up, I'd flip it. And hopefully, if I caught it early, then within 2 hours of just resting in the recliner, maybe I would wake up and it would be gone, maybe.
Did you ever figure out what your triggers were?
I don't know if it was like my period. I think sometimes it was my period. sometimes that probably was if my contacts maybe had been dirty, or if I had something in my eye. But since I have become a nutritarian and they disappeared, I really don't get migraines anymore. So I think it was food, possibly dairy. Sometimes my kids say, I have migraines, and I say, give up dairy. So, but it could have been dairy. It could have been chemicals in the food. It could have been triggered by my period. But I did have them on a regular basis. And also my muscle cramps, especially Charlie horses, the kind where your shin, not your shin, but your calf, you're just minding your own business, lying in the bed, sitting somewhere, and suddenly that muscle on the back of your calf just twists.
Yeah.
And you can feel it. And my dad was a very strong man. He was a contractor, a builder, and he was my hero in many, many ways. And when I would see my dad jump out of bed or jump up from his recliner in the evening and just across the room just grabbing that scared me, because he was my hero, my Superman. And to see my dad in that kind of pain was very hard for me as a young person. And when I got my first Charlie horse, I'm like, okay, now I understand what my dad was feeling when he would jump up. And so whatever mineral deficiency, I used to have Charlie horses just out of the blue. And it was a very scary thing. Also, I was borderline anemic. And half the time when I would try to go donate blood, they would tell me, your iron is okay for just living your life, but it is too low to donate blood today. We're so sorry. And they actually started getting to the point where when they saw me coming, they know before they have me fill out all that paperwork, check my iron first. To save everybody the time, they would start checking my iron first. And half the time I couldn't donate because my iron was too low to donate. I also had scary high triglycerides. My cholesterol was high. I was a heavy meat eater.
How high? What are we talking?
I don't have the form here, but I remember when I saw, is the number 245 for triglyceride? Because I don't remember. My paperwork is over at my house. I'm at my mom's right now, and I don't have my old
cholesterol.
Paperwork.
That would be like cholesterol.
It was, yes, it was. And I remember that yes. And so I was documented high, not just borderline, but high cholesterol. And I had borderline high blood pressure. It was always right at the top limit of okay, but right at the top limit of it. And sometimes I would just be, again, just sitting or lying, minding my own business, and suddenly my heart would just start going boop, 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 boop. And it's maybe lying in the bed, maybe sitting in my chair at work, and it would just start just suddenly. That was a scary, unexplainable heart palpitations. I also had sciatica after my first pregnancy when I gained so much weight, and I got sciatica then, and it never really went away until much later, that when the weight started dropping off, and I haven't had that numbness down my right leg and that pain. How can something be numb and painful at the same time? I don't get that. But I had numbness and pain, and I would have to pound on my right leg and sit down and make my leg wake up. It was horrible. And then at one time, of course, I had plantar fasciitis. I may be saying that wrong. You're a scientist, so I'm not saying that wrong.
You got it. You're good.
My arches are very high, and when I weighed over 250 pounds, that was just too much for my really high really high arches. So going like that with all the weight, so I had the bone spurs, and I had to go to a podiatrist, and you know what they do. They tell you got to get the best shoes, walking shoes, and you have to get inserts with high arch support, and I had to do all that. So no more pretty shoes. I had to wear the ugly walking shoes. And so I had plantar fasciitis, and like I said, I was obese. So those were some of the conditions that I had from the get-go before I did this.
So what was your aha? This has got to change. What was that moment?
It was that fear of diabetes. That was the afternoon, because 3 times in my past, I had lost a substantial amount of weight for different reasons each time that I chose to go on it. But when I thought I had diabetes, plus I had that fear of my dad had died of colon cancer. My grandmother, Carlisle, died of multiple myeloma. My other grandmother had a cancer. I had several cancer. We've had several survivors of cancer in my family, and with the diabetes and the cancers. And I just had that fear, also the fear of being a burden to my sons too early.
Yeah, that's my biggest fear. I think for
Yes.
me, that's one of my whys, because one of the things I talk about a lot is you have to know your why. Why are you doing this? And for me, I do not want to end up in the nursing home. That to me is one of my biggest fears that I have. And I've, even told my daughter, like, if my brain starts to go and you have to put me in the nursing home, just put the pillow over my head, call it a day,
Yeah. Especially early, especially before your time. Now, the last 6 months, they say, when Dr. Furman says, the last 6 months, you just get a little tired.
Yeah.
And before you are getting ready to pass away in your early hundreds.
Right. Exactly.
But but I want to, when I see people at Walmart that are my age that are in those wheeled things, I think, and sometimes it's for reasons that they've caused, not for like they were in an accident that was not their fault. That's different. Right. That's totally different thing.
Right.
But I want to be proactive. Yes. I want to keep my independence and my mobility. I want to be able to walk around a theme park on my own two legs.
Right.
Based
and
on
fit
my
in
ability.
The rides.
Right, and fit in the rides. That has been a major issue because there were many rides I couldn't fit in, and you do that walk of shame. They say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, but we can't close this over your stomach. You have to get up and you have to get out. And if you have your granddaughter there, and she either has to get out with you, or she has to sit there and let some other grown up sit or another older child or whatever, and you're so embarrassed." And so that has been a big why.
I got to share a story with you.
Mm-hmm.
My sister, my whole family's morbidly obese. And we took the kids to go to Disneyland. And we went to the Tower of Terror. And at the time, the Tower of Terror, you would sit in the seat and they would have seat belts that went over the whole seat.
Okay? Yeah.
So my sister had my son, with her. My son was, I don't know, at the time, like maybe 6, something like that, tiny. And so she put the seat belt way over. And he was like there was like this much gap,
Right.
The seatbelt. So when we went airborne, my son started flying.
Yes. Right.
I'm like grabbing onto his shirt, going, come back, come back down.
Yes.
We literally thought, because you're going down and you're slamming into the seatbelt now, and I thought he was just going to fly out.
Yes. Now I'll share a story with you from me that was an extremely important milestone. The first time that my son and my granddaughter and I went to Legoland, we live in Central Florida, so Winter Haven, Legoland, which used to be Cypress Gardens. For those of y'all that are old enough to remember Cypress Gardens with the beautiful girls in the Southern Belle dresses and all.
I still have pictures someplace.
Yes. Yeah. And then it became something else, and then it became Legoland. And the first time we went, she was about 3, and I had not yet discovered the Nutritarian plan. And there was a ride there called the Beetle Bounce, and it's kind of similar to what you're talking about. They have one spot for a grown-up, and in the middle, a seat big enough for a grown-up, a standard size grown-up. And then to the left and to the right are the seats for the children. And so the one grown-up sits there, and then the children. So I tried to sit in it with her. She was only 3. And the guy said, "I'm so sorry, but we can't, but buckle this here between your legs." I'm like, okay. So I got off, and some other grown-up sat next to my granddaughter. She was so scared because it was her first time. And I felt like this. So it was right after that first visit when I decided I needed to make a change because of my my scare of diabetes. So after that, I began losing weight. In the beginning, you lose weight quickly. So it was like 2 pounds a week, 2 pounds a week. Every time we would go, because we had the annual passes, I would say, well, let me try it this time. And let me try it this time. Nope, not yet. Okay, well, let me try it this time. Nope, not yet. And one day I'm like, I think this is it. I think this is it. And Siri and I went over there, and I got on it, and it was tight, but the guy buckled it. And I'm like, oh my, I was just excited, and we rode it. And when I got off, I said, Siri, let's do it again. And we got back in line, and I handed my phone to some stranger who was just standing across the gate. I said, I'm so sorry, but would you please take my picture of my granddaughter and me, because this is my first time fitting in this ride? They're like, sure. And so they took our picture, and it was a huge milestone, just a great moment to be able to get on Beetle Bounce for the first time.
Right.
So yes, it's pretty exciting. That's one of those non-scale victory moments.
I know, right? They're amazing. Well, how much weight have you lost total now?
So here's what happened to me. So in about 2012, and if you would be interested, I'll send you a couple of my before pictures if you want to put these in at any point here. So in 2012, I feel like I was at my highest then, and that was at 252. And my younger son took what I call, he took an unauthorized, it was a get without my knowledge or permission. He took my Canon camera. He was just playing with it, and he took a picture of me sitting in the rocking chair here in my mother's house in the living room at at our family Christmas party. And I want to show it. I want you to have that picture and a couple other pictures. But so 252. But shortly after that, I had my niece. We're Southern Baptist, but my niece used to give up something for Lent in honor of her Catholic friends. She would just give up something for Lent for 40 days, something unhealthy. So one year she gave up chocolate, and one year she gave up soft drinks, and one year she gave, just something kind of physically unhealthy. She would give it up for Lent and just for the 40 days. And so I thought, well, that's a really neat idea. So I decided to give up soft drinks, sugary drinks one time in about 2013. It was easier than I had anticipated it would be. In fact, I did it, and I never even thought about it again. I gave up sugared Coke and Sprite, and if I ever had anything, it would just be the sugar-free. But for the most part, and I never really drank sugared tea, but if I ever had the opportunity, I didn't anymore. And so I just gave up sugary drinks and didn't think anything more about it. And then whenever I decided to switch to this, I pulled those scales down, and they went from 252 to 227 that day when I weighed. The memory was still at 252, and there it was, 227. And I'm like, am I sick? What happened? How did I lose 25 pounds over the course of like 2 years without even knowing what I was doing? How did that happen? Nothing else changed.
Mm-hmm.
I did not give up my candy bars or my anything else. Okay, my donuts. I just gave up sugary drinks. So that is a prime example of how a tiny change can really change your trajectory. Just like James Clear says, if an airplane is flying from point A to point B and they just change the degree by 1 degree in their controls, they're not going to land at point B. They're not going to land at that airport, even if just by 1 degree. And so my change of a tiny thing over the course of 2 years, I dropped 25 pounds without changing nothing else. So when I started this, I was 227. So I had been 252. So I began dropping the weight. And when I got down to I was keeping a weekly cheat meal for the first 18 months. I thought I had to. I thought I had to do it to keep my sanity. I learned later that was incorrect, but for the first 18 months, I just assumed that I had to keep a cheat meal for my sanity. Okay, so then when I hit 175, those cheat meals started turning into like cheat day.
Yes.
And I spent more time thinking about what my next cheat meal was going to be than I should have. Then I noticed the scale started inching back up. And then I went back up almost 10 pounds from 175 to 185. When I got up to almost 185, I'm like, no. So again, a trajectory changed with the decision to have my weekly cheat meals, to keep the little things. And so I said, look, Dr. Furman, because I'm a nutritarian, Dr. Furman promised if you'll just go 100% compliant, you will lose your memory and your taste for sad foods. And I'm like, that can't be right. That seriously, that's not, doesn't even sound right. I mean, I love chocolate. Okay. I'm never going to not love chocolate. I love mac and cheese, my mother's signature mac and cheese. I love my signature lasagna. I love deep fried chicken thighs. I love biscuits with honey and butter or with cane syrup and butter or a peanut butter. I mean, I love all that stuff. I'm always going to love that stuff. But let's give this crazy man a try. And so if he says it, let's just try this. I went my first week, I said, let's just give it a week at a time. And next thing I know, 6 weeks had gone by and I had not had any sad foods. And my weight started dropping again. I'm like, that man is not crazy. He actually knows what he's talking about. And so I have been almost 100%. There have been 3 times that I've fallen off the wagon. I use that expression. I know some of the doctors hate that expression, but fallen off the wagon just a couple times due to some extenuating circumstances that I fell. But for the past almost 700 days, I have been 100% compliant. And so now I was at the beginning of the summer, I was at 119 even. I went to Italy. I got up that morning when I packed my suitcase was packed. I got on the scale that morning. I was 119. Then, as you know, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. I did an extended water fast later in the summer, and I got down to 102.8. At the day after my water fast ended that morning. That was my lowest weight of 102.8. And of course, you put weight back on. And I've been struggling since, you're back at work now, back at school. I'm back at school. I have had some other stresses. And so I'm trying to deal with maintenance and I'm not dealing very well. I'm not non-compliant, but I'm eating more of those things that I need to limit, which is the healthy fats and the grains, the whole grains. I need to limit my whole grains to like 1 serving a day, and the dried fruits. So I am, and I think the beans I need to limit to no more than like 2 cups a day sometimes, but here in the past couple of weeks, I've had sometimes more than that. So this morning I weighed 117.2. And I am started today, I'm starting a new course as of today where I'm going to go back to intermittent fasting, and I am doing what I call the old-fashioned deal a meal card. So it's a strategy that I've used in the past, and I am going to be more careful, and I'm limiting kind of what Dr. Furman has planned called the Radical Weight Reduction Plan in Chapter 8 of the End of Heart Disease. I'm doing something similar to that, but I'm going to have 4 fruits a day and not 2. But I am cutting out my whole grain. For 5 days, I'm cutting out my whole grain, and I'm going to try to stick to a 6-hour eating window. So my goal weight is 112. I want to be 112 with the loose skin. And I know we're going to talk about that too. But right now, with what I consider to be 5 to 6 pounds of loose skin, I would be happy to maintain 112. And then if I ever do decide to have loose skin removal surgery, then I would like to stay at about 1.6 because my Furman ideal is 104. So I would like to be somewhere between 106 and 110 when the loose skin has been removed. And I would like to be 112 while I still have the loose skin. So that's where I stand right now.
Well, what has been the most difficult obstacle you faced going plant-based?
Okay, so I feel that there are 3 that we have to do. I think that there are 3 obstacles. In my opinion, there are 3 things that we all have to deal with that are the hardest, in my personal opinion. Number 1 is getting over your addiction to sad foods. Now, that in the beginning was hard for me, and I think it's hard for everybody. A lot of people are still dealing with their sad addictions. But that is a hurdle that I managed to get over. But in the beginning, that was my first one, especially when I was still keeping my cheat meals. So I think this is what I call my 3-pronged battle. So prong number 1 is our addiction to sad foods. I finally got over that. So I haven't had any sad food in about 2 years. So that one, I overcame that hurdle. The second hurdle, which I still deal with daily, and I know I'll deal with this for the rest of my life, is the emotional eating, stress eating. So that is right now, that's my biggest obstacle that I still deal with daily is emotional eating for what I call inappropriate reasons that have nothing to do with nutrition. And so you eat for stress, which is what I did yesterday all day long. I ate for stress. We drove home from Alabama to back to Florida. We were in the car. My cat was stressed. All three of us were stressed, my mother and I and the cat. And we were just trying to get home. I had something to do before dark. I needed to mow my yard. So I was just, let's just get home. Let's just get home. The cat would not stop meowing. She
Oh,
was very
God.
stressed. And so I ate. And I never even ate any raw vegetables, which I should have been eating, but I was eating the grains. I was eating the fruit like crazy because the sugar addiction. And so it was what I call unauthorized eating. Sometimes we eat for boredom. Sometimes we eat when we're anxious. Sometimes we eat when we're really just tired. We're eating, or if we're thirsty, we eat. So emotional eating, stress eating, unauthorized eating, inappropriate reasons for eating, that's my biggest obstacle still. And then the third one, which is a minor obstacle right now, but it's still an obstacle, is the inability sometimes, the challenge, I should say, of planning ahead and prepping so that you're prepared and you're ready with your own foods when every day you know what you're going to eat that day and you have it with you. So that is an obstacle that I feel like I have overcome, but I have to stay on top of it. I have to stay on top of that. So
Yeah.
it's still a daily challenge, even though I know what to do now. And it's not as hard as the emotional eating challenge. But like I was up this morning at 4:00 and I was in there cutting up my vegetables and prepping for the day at 4:00. It's better to do it the night before, but you've got to do it. What if I went to work without my food?
Oh, now forget it. You'll go right off. You'll derail faster than anything else.
Yes.
I call
And
this
I've learned,
process shop, chop, prep. So I go shopping on Friday. Saturday, I get the veggies washed, prepped, let them out, sit them out, let them dry. Then they go back into the fridge. And then Sunday, I usually spend several hours in the kitchen and I batch cook. I've usually got my Instant Pots going too. I have two Instant Pots. They're going both, and I usually make some kind of grain, some
mhm,
kind of bean. I make a potato, and have that cooked and ready. And then that goes back in the refrigerator and then it becomes resistant starch.
mhm,
And, then I make salads and I have containers that I have carrots and celery and things like that, Persian
mhm,
cucumbers, and I make little containers.
mhm.
And if anybody's interested, I usually, once school starts, I have on my Instagram, I post what's in my cooler today.
Mhm,
And that's what I do is I carry that. And that's pretty much, I do the same thing. I do a window of eating.
mhm.
And so basically my first meal is usually, sometimes depends upon my schedule for that
Yeah.
day, between
Mhm.
11, 12, 1 o'clock is my first meal. And then usually I try not to eat past 6, 7 o'clock at night. And
Right.
then that's it. And then that's my
Mine
window of
is
eating.
mine is right now it's 6 a.m. to 1 p.m. because I want to eat breakfast. I did try the going all morning and not eating until 1, and I get too distracted. I'm miserable trying to get through my first few classes with hunger. So for me, I eat at 6 and then I have first period planning. And so when I can have something easy to eat, then I eat while I'm doing getting things set up for the day, use my planning sometimes to continue to eat a few things. And then I don't know if you have to do this, but we're required to stand at our door during the 4-minute class change. So
Hmm.
what I do is I sneak in some of my veggies. So I have my bowl ready to go, or my Ziploc bag. And when I step to my door, I either have my bowl, like this morning during 2 of the class changes, I had a bowl that had 2 fresh tomatoes already cut up into chunks. And this morning before I left the house, I put some of the dried Italian seasoning. I sprinkled that in there and just did like this to it. I didn't add pepper or any other seasonings. I just put the mixture of herbs, of the Italian seasoning in there and mixed it up. And then when I stepped to the door, I had the bowl with my spoon and I just sat there. And of course, the kids walk past me like, they look at my bowl. They're like, what is, and then they're like, are you eating tomatoes? hmm and, and then they're like, okay, where's your ranch dressing? I'm like, I like them plain. And so I sneak in some of my raw veggies between the classes when I'm standing there just watching the sidewalk.
Right.
And then during my lunch, I try to wrap up. That's my goal this week. Today I didn't make it because I was so busy during my planning. I couldn't. So I ate my veggies, my raw veggies when I got home this afternoon. I actually turned them into a smoothie. I put every single veggie that I had in the Ziploc bags down in my Vitamix and turned it into a smoothie and added 2 small mandarin tangerines to give it just a bit of sweetness. And I'm like, this is actually not bad, even though I had broccoli in there and kale. I had 1 whole red bell pepper in there. I had about a third of a huge cucumber in there. And I had, just like eight or 9 veggies in there. And I pureed the entire thing with 2 tangerines, and it was pretty good. And I sat and lived. Tomorrow I'm taking it pureed, not juice, but smoothie. So all the fiber still with it.
Right.
And I'm going to take it and drink it during my planning tomorrow to get it done. And then during my lunch, I eat my little cup of beans and my bowl of vegetable soup. And so you're talking about with the batch cooking, what I do is I'll take, like last spring break, I took 4 days of spring break. And the first day I did my shopping. And I brought all 3 of my coolers into the dining room. And then I prepped every single vegetable, went back into a container, all prepped and ready to go. All 3 coolers were full. And then I had my 2 big stock pots on the stove, and I started cooking. And I cooked like 6 or 8 big stock pots. Every one of them had all the veggies. And I start with the hard things first, like the carrots, the parsnips, the okra, and the celery goes in first. And then in 15 minutes, I put the next layer of things like the broccoli and the cauliflower and the squash and then the third layer, and then the eggplant goes in. And sometimes I put beet cubes in there too, and root vegetables. I put the Caribbean root vegetables like batata and the yautia, the yucca, and I put some of that in there too for a filler. And then I put seasonings in there, and every pot gets a main seasoning. Like this pot's going to be garam masala, this pot's going to be shichimi tagaroshi, this pot's going to be hot Hungarian paprika, but they all have garlic powder, onion powder, and Italian seasoning. But then each separate pot has a main flavor, and I load up with the flavor. I like flavor. So on the bowls, after I scoop them into my bowls before I freeze them, I put masking tape on the top of every bowl, and that's what I write on the bowl. Like today at lunch, my bowl said red curry. And so I warmed it up and ate it today.
Now, how do you warm your food up?
I use a microwave in my classroom.
Ooh. Have you heard about the mini hot logic?
No, I have not.
The mini hot logic, amazing. It looks like a little lunchbox, and in the bottom of it, they've got a warming tray, and it's real high tech. You plug it in, it's on, and you unplug it, it's off. My kind of technology.
Awesome.
And
I'll keep that in mind.
When I get to school, what I do is I have a glass dish and I put my beans or my soup or whatever it is, because I like a hot meal at lunch.
Yes, me too.
So when I get to school, I take my stuff out of the cooler and I take a picture of what's in my cooler today. And then I take the stuff that needs to get heated up and I put it on the mini hot logic and I plug it in. And by lunchtime, I have a piping hot meal.
Awesome.
And then in the afternoon, I kind of have a similar thing where I have after school study hall. So after lunch and I finish my soup or my beans or whatever, and I've got an empty dish, then I take my potatoes. I call it the potato hour in the afternoon, when you just get that, you're like looking around going, hey, a little salt, this would be pretty good. You get really hungry, and that's when you start scrolling around the vending machine.
Yeah.
I call it the potato hour. So I'll take like 2 little potatoes and I'll cut them up and I'll put something like sriracha sauce on them. And I'll put that in after lunch. So I'll have a nice hot snack after school. So I'll take that with me when I leave, and I go from my classroom to the library, and I'll bring that with me. And the kids go and get their snacks. They get them from the vending machine because they really don't have any other choice. And they eat their snacks and they come in and they, and then they walk by and you can smell mine. And they're like,
yes.
Hey, can I have some?
I know.
Mine. And some days, like, I'll have extra, like I, have packed more. And so I'll give them some of the, like the kids a lot of them have never had like raw peas. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I'm like, I know.
Real food.
I know, real
You
food.
know,
And
what
it's
you're eating,
interesting
fake.
to see the kids. Two stories I
Mhm.
got to share with you. One was I was teaching overseas, and this was amazing. I was teaching high school at an American school in
Mhm.
Guayaquil, Ecuador,
Mhm.
and right across from I taught high school science, and for whatever reason, first grade was put across the room for me. I don't know why.
Mhm.
So every day these kids would go in and their parents would send them money, to buy lunch. Well, they didn't buy lunch. They bought ding dongs, and these are little 6-year-olds, okay?
Mhm.
So they were eating like ding dongs and ho-hos and yum yums and whatever, and one or two glasses, like 8-ounce glasses of Coke. They would
Mhm.
drink that, and they'd come back, and I felt so bad for this teacher because after lunch, there was no control in the classroom, and you could hear
Mhm.
the volume of the
Mhm.
children
Yeah.
and just the noise. She couldn't get them to do anything. And then after one period, after lunch, then you look across the hall, and every one of them would have their head on their desk,
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
out. The
Yeah.
sugar high, then the sugar low. So that
Yeah.
was one story. And then the kids would get their snacks. They go up to the vending machine and they get garbage,
Mhm.
processed garbage, and they
Mhm.
come back in and literally they'll eat their snacks, and within a half an hour to an hour, even the kids who are older, high school kids, they're tired and passing out and
Yeah.
putting their heads down on the desk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I did that. I used to do that too. I would get my lunch out of the vending machine, and within 1 hour after lunch, I felt like crap. Yes.
yeah,
For years, I'd get my lunch out of the vending
right.
machine. Yeah. So I kind of had a similar, I would take my little beans, and when fourth period would come in, I'd take my cup of frozen beans and put them in the microwave. They had to smell them, and a lot of them had second lunch. I had first lunch, so right when they walked out the door, I got to eat, my lunch, and they still had to go another period, a lot of them, and they're like, "Oh my God, your stuff smells so good." I'm like,
Right.
"Well, thank you. These just beans, and they're salt free, and they're seasoned with garlic powder, onion powder, and Italian seasoning." And so they kept on and on and on about my beans. So I said, okay. I'm going to bring my Instant Pot in one day, and I'm going to make a pot of my beans, and I'll bring them in, and y'all can try them. So one morning, I made a pot, and I let fourth period try them first, and then fifth, I got the rest of them, and then the second period was like, well, what about us? So then I brought in a pot, and second and third got to try them, and so it's a great way to introduce, and I get stuff like that, like you do all the time, where they're like, that smells so good, your soup smells so good, and
Right.
I'm like, well,
Yeah.
thank you. It's they're like, what's
Yeah.
in that? And I say it's like
Yeah.
15 different veggies, and so yeah, it's a great method. And I've had kids come to me after class, after everybody walks out the door, and they'll say like, can you help me lose weight? And or they'll say something like, I just wanted to tell you that you've inspired me to give up soft drinks. And and I'll get that on Facebook. Our former students will
Yeah.
say stuff to me, and so it's very gratifying when you know that you're a positive example, not by preaching, but that you're just, your message is positive example,
Right. One of my students went plant-based because of me in high school. And
Mm-hmm.
then she went on and did her undergrad in nutrition, basically.
Oh, wow.
And then she went on to become a registered dietitian. And now she's helping people deal with cancer,
That's awesome.
through food.
Wow.
And she's
See?
amazing. She is absolutely amazing. So I've had and I've had kids come, especially some of the athletes, because I
Mm-hmm.
had one little girl she was amazing in soccer. Oh my God, so good in soccer. And she was on the field almost the whole game, except
Mm-hmm.
for the point when she would just pull up short because her the calf muscles would go like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the magnesium. So she came in to me and said, what can I do? And so we went through, on game day, what time, if the game is at this time, what time, what are you going to eat? How much are you going to hydrate? Da, 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 da. And I went through this whole sequence with her. And once we did that and she changed, she never had another cramp again.
Wow.
Not only that, but she noticed immediately her ability to play and run was just incredible. She said
Mm-hmm.
she went to Jedi level, she told me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the same thing happened with a young man who he played basketball and was quite good, and he had the same issue because you're doing a lot of running. And he would almost every game have to be taken out. He'd look over to the coach and say, take me out, because his leg would he'd be on the sideline just massaging his leg, trying to get the knot out. And, and then you're favoring that leg, the rest of the game. And after he did what I told him to do, he went plant-based and never had, again, another issue. So, and I've had students who've had tremendous acne who have cleared it up, going plant-based. And we've talked about it, so it's amazing. I mean, and I'm grateful that, the kids, listen to me, and they find out I have a YouTube channel and, so it's kind of fun. They, because I do a lot of things in the classroom. I do like with flipped classroom. I don't know if you're familiar with that, where instead of you being the sage on the stage, I'm the guide on the side. And I record like all my lectures and things, for them to watch ahead of time.
I'm kind of excited this year because they told us on the first day, they said, here's what we want y'all to do. We're going to start a new little thing, and it's going to be one Raider time, which is about 20 minutes every other week. We want to have a club day because one of our goals this year is to try to get 100% of our kids involved in some sort of an extracurricular activity. So we're going to make it easy on them all by having a club day for 20 minutes, one day every other week. And we need everybody here to decide what you're going to be involved with, whether you team do it or if it's something you're already doing, but you're going to try to open it up to get more kids involved, or if you have a new idea to do on your own. And so the other Spanish teacher and I talked, and our little foreign language club, we have no interest in doing something. We did things in the past, but right now we have just different things that we do. So I have been wanting to do something nutritarian related with my students official. So I'm starting a support group here in Webster and I'm calling it Webster Eats to Live. And it's going to be starting on the 26th, August 26th on Monday nights. It's going to be a support group where I'm meeting down at our historic community building. And the first thing I'm going to do is like you were doing the speeches, I'm going to do like a 20-minute presentation, some sort of an informational presentation. It could be something on cruciferous vegetables, or it could be on replacements, alternatives to dairy, or something like that, a 20-minute presentation. And I'm going to record it and put it up on my YouTube channel, Plant Rich Sandra. But we'll start with that. And then we're going to do a traditional support group circle. And so it's Webster Eats to Live, Nutritarian, Monday nights here in Webster, 6:30 to 8.
Nice.
But that day when they said we need everybody to come up with an idea, at the end of the day, I went up there. They were both in the office, and I said, would it be okay? I told them I pitched them what I'm going to be doing here in Webster. I said, I would like to do a Raiders Eat to Live, a modified version of what I'm doing, because I've had a lot of kids who have expressed an interest in whole food, plant-based eating. Could I do a Raiders Eat to Live and do something, and I'll try to shy away from like talking about meat, because we do have a lot of dairy farmers and we have a lot of cattlemen and our students with the FFA and all. So I'm not really wanting to go into anything combative with them, but I could focus on the positive things, like what can you eat that would be healthy for you? And we could talk about that. And they're like, so a diet club. And I'm like, well, okay.
Nutrition.
And nutrition group. And so one of them said, yes, I'm okay with that. How about you? And the other one said, yeah, that sounds good. I'm like, so I get to do something official, and I'm going to be able to hang up signs and I have one board in my classroom that's going to be devoted to Raiders Eat to Live. And I began working on the board, and I'm just really excited to be able to incorporate that now officially into my day at school and hang things up and encourage healthier eating.
I did something similar at school with my advisees, and one of the things I do is I have them choose a recipe that's whole food plant-based, and then I'll make it and bring it in. And if it's something like I did a mac and nut cheese, and I brought the pasta in, I have a hot plate, and I just cooked the pasta, and I brought the sauce, and I just heated that up in the mini Hot Logic. And we sat and ate that and the kids went absolutely crazy.
Mm-hmm.
you know, just for all the things that I've made, you know, but they had to go out and find. I gave them the requirements, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
recipe, you know, whole food, plant-based, SOS, and they went out and found one. And then I made it, brought it in, or we made it together, you know,
Mm-hmm.
if it was simple enough that we could do in the classroom, you know.
Yeah,
So,
I want to do that too. I want to bring in my Vitamix and show them how to make nut butter, whole,
right,
you know, from raw and unsalted nuts and seeds, and
right.
then to take some of that and to make a nut milk, and then to take that with some frozen fruits and make a fruit sorbet. So one day I want to do those three. I want to show them how to make beans. I will bring my Instant Pot in and, you know, demonstrate some things too there. And also in the Webster Eats to Live, which I already did. I had 2 meetings already here, kind of prototype meetings back in May, and I'm April and May, and I want to start doing that down there, you know. So
Nice.
yeah,
Wow. Well, at your highest weight, what was your BMI?
it was at 252. It was 46.1. Was my highest, yeah, because I'm 5'2", and my highest weight that I know of, it may have been
It's like
higher
your
than that.
50% was 50% fat.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, wow.
46. When the first time I looked that up, I was just in shock. 46.1.
Yeah.
You know, and as of this morning at 117, I'm 21.4.
Wow.
And I had gotten down at 102, which I couldn't maintain 102, especially with at 5 or 6 pounds of loose skin on me. 102 is unrealistic for, you know, for me with the excess skin. But at 102, I think that was 18.5. But again, I have 5 or 6 pounds of skin. So 102 minus the 5 or 6 pounds of skin is underweight. You know, that's not enough. So I don't want to be 102 with the excess skin. You know,
Well, did your doctor support your change in diet?
I shy away from doctors. I've kind of shied away from doctors for years. And so I had not been to a doctor that had any concern about my weight for years. I had been to a doctor for other things, but not, you know, nobody had ever talked to me about that. But I do remember one time when I think it was after my older son was born, or I had just gotten pregnant, or with my second son, I can't remember now. But I asked a doctor about a diet. He was not a diet doctor. He was my OBGYN. And I asked him about healthy eating. He goes, look, it doesn't really matter what you eat. He goes, a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. So just monitor your calorie count.
Yeah.
That's really what you need to do. And as I think back to that man giving me that advice, it makes me cringe. All of the bad advice that allopathic doctors and completely uninformed doctors give us, it's
They're not
sad and
educated.
scary. No, they're not.
No, they don't have,
Yeah.
like, they might have 1 or 2 courses throughout all of their medical training, which just makes it's absolutely crazy to me. Here it is, this is the fuel that's going to run this high performance vehicle, and it doesn't matter? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Is it Dr. Kim Williams, who he's famous for the quote, there are plant-based cardiologists, and then there are cardiologists who haven't yet read the data.
Right.
Isn't that Dr. Williams who said that?
Dr. Kim Williams. Yep.
I think so, yeah, which is true. A lot they don't know. Anything that they read after they graduate from medical school and become a doctor is totally at their discretion.
Right.
They're not going to do that.
No. But I also think too, the doctors have this persona of, I'm a doctor and I know everything. And I'll never forget, I was in Whole Foods and I was in a different one that I normally shop in. So, you know, they have different brands, you know, from one store to another. So I was in there looking for a hummus, and I was looking for one without oil, of course. So I'm looking and I'm picking up and looking at the labels and stuff like that. And this guy comes up behind me and he's like, oh my God, there's so many hummuses. Which one? You know? And I said, this one and this one both have no oil. And this woman comes up, and I was explaining that oil is really bad and it doesn't, you know, your endothelial cells. And I was going through the whole thing. And she just stands behind me and says, well, I'm a doctor and you have to have oil. Your brain has to function. And I wanted to say, could you tell me what practice you're in so I don't go there?
Yeah, you should have.
I kind of,
It's crazy.
Yeah, I didn't, but I'm
Scary.
like, yeah, I'm like, wow, you are just
Ignorant.
not, yeah, exactly. You
Hmm.
have no idea what you're talking about. And putting on that white coat makes you what? You know everything now? I don't think so.
They believe their own hype.
Yes,
They believe their
I
own hype.
think so too. I think so too. So you've mentioned a couple times loose skin. What are we talking here? I mean,
Okay, so when I look at my face, I'm okay with my face. And
right.
and I know, especially now that I've been back to making my YouTube videos and stuff, and I don't know if you have seen this, but I'm recording one of my classes of Spanish 1 during the day, and then I upload that to a different channel for any absent students. They
Right.
can see what we did, and also if they were there but they like were uncomfortable about a portion of my lesson, they can go back and watch it. So when I watch myself, I say, okay, I see that I do have a little bit here, but it could have been a lot worse. So, and then my neck was really big. So I know that I have skin here, but it could have been a lot worse. So I have that. But what I have that I am not happy with, that I'm not acceptable with, is the
The
here.
wings. The
Okay.
wings. Yeah.
Yes. And I call them the curtains. And then I do have what they call the skirt. I have the abdominal overhang, but it's not enough that a doctor would authorize it for insurance to be paying for it. It's not bad enough to be
Yeah.
medically required. And then I have what I call the drapes, which is the hanging crepey skin on my inner thighs.
Yeah.
So I have that, those three. Oh, I also have right here, under here,
Oh yeah.
because I
Okay.
had the back fat. So
Uh-huh.
I have, and I'm not going to wear, not only because of my arms, but because of the lumpy excess skin there. I don't have excess skin on my back, but I do have this underneath here.
Right.
So those 4 areas, someday I'm thinking in the future, I'm going to wait 2 years,
Hmm.
and then I will reassess and see if it has shrunk up more, and then I will consider loose skin removal surgery. But right now, I think I have maybe 5 or 6 pounds.
Okay. All
That's
right.
that's my estimation.
So what made you want to change? The diabetes? Was
Yes,
that the main driving factor?
it was that, and then like I said, the fact that the fear of the cancers that run in my family, and why was my heart going like that, and I had no clue that my migraines would go away. And so, whenever my girls in my class, like in a free moment, sometimes 2 female students would start talking about their migraines, and they would be sharing stories and talking about them and stuff. And I would always pipe in and say, "Yeah, girls, I have them too, and this is what I have to do, and how do you handle this?" And I would talk with them about it. And so one day, after I had been a nutritarian for about 2 years, so this was somewhere around 2017, 2 girls were talking about their migraines. And so I was ready to pipe in and give my experience too. And I thought a minute, like, when was the last time I had a migraine? And I'm like, wait a minute. I didn't even realize I haven't even had a migraine in 2 years.
Yep.
That was another aha moment that I didn't even
Yeah.
realize I had not. So
Yeah.
that was really cool. But yes, it was all of those things put together were my pushed me over the edge to do something. But like I said, I had 3 times in my past I had lost a lot of weight. I put it all back on and then some. So as I was sitting there that afternoon at my dining room table Googling diabetic diet, and then I found Dr. Furman, thank God. I found Dr. Furman that after, I don't even know how it happened, but I found The End of Diabetes. But as I read a little bit more, I discovered Eat to Live was the better book to order to start with. I thought, let me start with this other book. Okay, so instead of getting The End of Diabetes first, I went straight to Eat to Live. I knew nothing about Dr. Furman, never heard of him, never seen him on PBS, didn't know a dang thing about him, never heard of being a nutritarian, never heard of the book. And so I thought in the beginning I was all alone. There was nobody else on this planet doing this, and I was all alone. I didn't have anybody telling me, advising me anything for a long time. I started it that way. That's how I began it. But I told myself that afternoon, I said, look, whatever you did in the past obviously was a flawed method because you didn't stick with them and you put all your weight back on and then some every single time that you've ever tried to diet. So it's got to be different this time. And this time, the change can't be because you're looking to change the outside. You have to start by thinking about changing the inside. You got to change the inside. You got to change from the inside out. You got to become a metamorphosis and think about your health first and change up here. And so I knew that first day that the change had to be from the inside out. If I changed the inside, the outside would happen as a result. So that was and I said, how come, Sandra, you have this way of getting obsessed about something, and then for 2 years you're completely obsessed with some new hobby, and then you give it up. Okay, why can't you let your health be an obsession? Why can't you let a new eating plan become your new obsession? Because you were obsessed with cross stitch for 2 years, you were obsessed with container gardening, you were obsessed with wanting to be on Jeopardy for 2 years, you were making flashcards and studying to be on Jeopardy. And let's let your health be an obsession. And so that's what I did. I said, I'm going to turn my health into an obsession. And that's what I did. So, and then
We're on
it
the
kept
same
going.
page.
Yeah. And I said, I need to start loving something that's going to love me back.
Right.
And so that's partly also how I did it, was to make it my obsession. And it worked.
I know.
And I'm going on almost 4 years, and I'm still obsessed because of the motivation, fear, then momentum.
Right.
Then I found my tribe.
I know, right?
I found my community, and that has been a major game changer to stay motivated, is my friends that I have now in the whole food plant-based community. Because you know this, when you're at work, there's nobody there that's interested in what you're doing.
Right.
They don't want to hear it. So you don't tell them. You don't preach. You don't bring it up. You learn the hard way. Don't bring it up. At church, don't bring it up. None of those people want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. When they go stay after for a church dinner, they're not interested in your healthy foods. And so it's the ham and the fried chicken and the big mounds of roast beef and the mac and cheese. That's what they want. So don't talk about it. But later, when you find your tribe, those people are keenly interested, and they want to hear your story, and they want to hear what you're doing to when you struggle. They want to know, they want to offer help. And so I learned to rely very heavily on my tribe. I would come home every day, and I'd get in my support groups, and those became my folks.
With my Weight Loss Advantage program, that's one of the things we do. Is I've got an exclusive group that we connect through, number one, and that's 24/7. And I'm constantly posting new recipes, new videos, every day I'm posting more, because the key is to keep educating yourself.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And not only that, but then we do a weekly coaching call. So just like this on Zoom, we connect through Zoom, and we do this because I wish I had someone like me or you to guide me through this, because, oh my God, I felt like, I felt like a newborn giraffe, I don't know what to do, and you're trying this, you're trying that, and you're not really quite sure which way to go or how to do it.
And you have so many questions.
Yes. Because it's not just changing your food. You've got to change. There's so much information that you have to learn, and it's taken me 10 years. And that's why I've created this program online for people to work through at their own pace, so that they're not overwhelmed, so that they can go through step by step, but then get all the questions answered.
And I encourage everybody to join my favorite support group. I say, look, just join the group, and then, if you're interested, and if you have any questions, ask it in the group. And then I also created Webster Eats to Live Nutritarian. I put Nutritarian in parentheses. And so it's a small group. If anybody asks to join, I let them join, even if they live like across the country or whatever. If they say, well, can I just be a part of your online community? And I can't, obviously I live in Norway and I can't come to your meetings, but can I be a part of that? And I'm like, yeah. So I'm doing the same thing as you. I'm just posting stuff now, even though we haven't had our first meeting officially. We had the 2 prototype meetings, but I don't even know how many are going to come to that. But it's going to be a face-to-face thing on Mondays. It'll be free here in Webster. Anybody that wants to come. They don't have to even let me know in advance. I'll have handouts. And then, and if they can't come, they can watch the videos later. But, that's what I want, is because I wish I had had that. And so many people have said, I need help. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to shop. So and these are people I've known since a kid who are asking me, what do you do? Well, what do you buy? How are you cooking this? And so, that's why I started the group. Webster Eats to Live, and then in parentheses, I put nutritarian.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I know, because I saw on Facebook that you went down to Puerto Rico para practicar su español, and you also fasted. And so tell us how that, first of all, how long did you fast, and how did it go?
Okay. If anybody wants the gory day-to-day details, go to the YouTube channel Plant Rich Sandra. That's with a hyphen, Plant Rich, because I forced myself at the beginning every day, and then it became every other day because I had no energy. I forced myself to get up and talk about how the previous 48 hours went. Every morning I would weigh, and I would go through some stuff with the doctors. So then I would go sit outside, and I would set no makeup, because when you're water fasting, you don't wear perfumed products. So I didn't get to wear my beloved makeup for 17 days. And I didn't get to put my beloved gel in my hair. So my hair was just, flat. They provide you with a shampoo that's extremely mild, fragrance-free. They provide you with a shower soap that's very mild, but I just couldn't put makeup on. Oh, and no deodorant, even though I took my Schmidt's, which is fragrance-free and sensitive, but they said, we really think you'd be better off just for your 17 days. Don't put deodorant. I'm like, okay. And when you brush your teeth, no toothpaste. You brush your teeth just with water. So that's part of the water fast. And you drink no more than 60 ounces of water a day, reverse osmosis. They have a machine that gives you cold water, tepid water, hot water in the room. So we all, tried to limit ourselves to 60 ounces of water a day. So there at that, now that there are several doctor-monitored water fasting clinics here in the United States, plus Dr. Greg Fitzgerald in Sydney, Australia is also certified, plus Doctors Fry, Dr. Ace and Joanna Fry in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Those are the only places. Dr. Nathan Gershfeld in Southern California, and Santa Rosa is, of course, the biggie, True North in Santa Rosa. And then Dr. Ewan is in Amish country in Farmington, Ohio. And then there are the Fry doctors. And of course, Dr. Furman's new Eat to Live retreat. If he feels that a fast is warranted, you can do that at his Eat to Live retreat. But he also focuses on just teaching you how to cook and eat properly. And it's a place to heal where they cook and feed you, and you can heal up with healthy, whole food, plant-based, nutrient-dense, plant-rich, as he calls it, at his place. Oh, Dr. Sabatino in South Florida. Also, you can go there to water fast. So those are all the places. His is called Balance for Life.
Balance for Life.
That's right.
In Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I've actually gone down there and
awesome.
And got to see. They do water fasting. They do juice fasting, but they also do whole food, plant-based. They call it a smart vacation. So you can go hang out and then have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The hotel is right on the beach. Oh my God.
Yes, it is. It's a resort right on the beach.
It's a resort right on the beach, and it's amazing. You go sit out and hang, and and they also offered programs to exercise, and and Dr. Sabatino does lectures throughout the day, and so
that's pretty cool.
Anyway, going back to your fast, we got to
Okay. I ended up fasting a total of 17 days. I had planned on fasting 21 with a 4-day refeed, and so I was there for 25 days.
Okay.
But when I spoke with Dr. Furman at the NHA conference, and I said, Dr. Furman, I'll be doing a 21-day water fast next week. I'll be going down with Doctors Asa and Joanna Fry. He goes, do not do a 21, don't go over 14. And I think he was speaking from a place of conservatism because, he knew that I was right down at 119, 120. And so he felt that over fasting might be a danger. So he told me just do 14 or do 7 on, 7 off, 7 on, and then your 4-day refeed, but not do over. So what I ended up doing was when I got down there, I decided to split the difference and safely settle on 17. So that's how I picked 17, was halfway between his recommendation of 14 and they're saying that I could go 21, which I could have gone to. I think that if Dr. Furman had been my doctor, he would have also said, 21, you're good. You can go on to 21. But speaking preliminarily and from a place of conservatism, he wanted me to stop at 14. So I went to, and that first morning I weighed 122.8, and on the morning 18 after the 17 days, I weighed 102.8. So I lost exactly 20. But of course, you begin putting your weight back on. And I have, like I said earlier, I have been some stress, and I have not been able. And I've been doing something else too, which is new for me. You remember I told you how I batch cook. Sometimes I'll batch cook 100. My last time was 100 servings. Then I don't turn my stove on again for 4 months. Okay. That is my method of sustainability, is to batch cook between 70 and 100 servings of soup, all different flavors, put them in the freezer, and I don't cook again. Every day I take out one bowl and I eat it, and I have my raws, and I have my little cup of beans, which I also batch cook, and I have my little whole grains, and sometimes I'll mix like that. So I'll do that for 3 or 4 months, no cooking, and that is how I get through. That's been my secret to my success, okay?
Wow.
Well,
okay.
That's how I've done it. Okay. Now, some people say, well, Sandra, that's obsessive compulsive. When you spend 4 days cooking, I'm like, yeah, but then I don't cook again for 4 months. But I have a variety in the freezer because this bowl says garam masala, this bowl says hot Hungarian paprika. So I pull a different bowl out every day. And so I have a variety.
Right.
And then I don't. So that has worked for me for several years now. Okay. So now I am staying more with my mom. I'm here. She is not able to be alone at night and stuff. So her situation has changed, and she's here by herself. So we live next door to each other. So now I'm over here. I'm trying to encourage her to eat healthier. So in order to get her to eat healthier, I am having to start cooking, right? I'm having to make more enticing. I'm having to branch out and make the recipes in the quick and easy. And also my granddaughter. I'm trying to help my ex-daughter-in-law to encourage my granddaughters, because my ex-daughter-in-law is trying to eat nutritarian. So I am having to branch out. And it's been hard, and I knew it would be hard, and it has been hard. When I cook something, well, I want to eat it all. That's why I don't do it. That's why I haven't been doing it, because I want to eat everything. So I've been dealing with that. And so I have been inching back up, because I've been starting back to school, traveling, trying to help get my mom find things that she'll eat, because if she doesn't like it, she's not going to eat it. Right. So I've been trying to make things that are out of my comfort zone to get her to eat healthy foods. And my granddaughter, who is really picky, she's a 100% sad eater, and my ex-daughter-in-law's been struggling with that. So I'm trying, I'm honestly, Jean, I'm trying to find my path right now. So I know my weight has gone back up more than it should have. I did not want to go over 112, and here I was this morning at 117. So that's why for the next 5 days, I have my 2 goals of the intermittent fasting and kind of what I call deal meal, old style deal meal cards. And then once I eat those things, I'm done eating for the day. So index cards, okay? Once these cards are gone for the day, I'm done eating for the day. Okay. No matter what I say, I have removed my own permission to eat anything else for the rest of the day. Okay. My 1 ounce of nuts and seeds, my 1 tablespoon of flax and chia, which I put in my vegetable soup for my breakfast, my 1 pound of my cooked vegetables for the day, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 servings of raw vegetables, and like today I turned them into a smoothie. 1, 2, 3, 4 servings of fruit, whether fresh or frozen. One of them must be a berry serving, as Dr. Furman says, my G-bombs. One of them must be a berry. And of course, I must add raw onions to my soup. Because Dr. Furman says, make sure you get raw onions every day with your G-Bomb. So, and then my 1 cup of legumes. And I tried, and for the next 5 days, I'm not eating 2 cans of beans like I've been doing this past 2 weeks out of stress. I am going to eat 1 cup a day for 5 days, and then I'm going to weigh again. Then I'm going to try to stick with this also Saturday, and then weigh on Sunday morning, and hopefully it'll be down some from the 117.2 of this morning. So
what a great idea with the cards.
Yeah, it's the old Richard Simmons deal meal. I'm going to, put I have 2 paper clips. There'll be a paper clip on the set of the half that I have not eaten yet. And then there'll be another paper clip. And once I eat them, they go to the other paper clip. And then when they're gone, when the first paper clip is empty, there will be no other eating. I've eaten every nutrient that my body needed for the, once I eat all this, then I have eaten all the nutrients that I needed for the day. And anything else I eat that day is unauthorized eating. Unauthorized. So no.
Wow.
Now,
That
one
is
thing you
amazing.
one thing you didn't see here was my starch, right? Like my whole grain. For this next 6 days, I've just decided that I will not eat a whole grain for 6 days because the last 3 days, I went nuts on my whole grain. So for 6 days, I'm just going to temporarily cut out my whole grain. So then I will add my whole grain back because I do love my grains. But for 6 days, the grains are the one thing that we actually don't really need. The other things, the G-Bombs, you must have. But the whole grain is something we can live without as long as we're getting all the other stuff.
Right.
So for 6 days, I'm just not going to have it to try to speed up and get back down to 112. So
what are you most proud of throughout all of this?
Okay, so there are 2 things. Oh, and I didn't finish telling you about with the fasting, but what you do experience is no energy. The energy goes, okay, no energy. So all 3 of us roommates were like, hey, and I didn't want to learn. I didn't want to read. I didn't want to watch any of those educational movies like What the Health and Vegucated. I just wanted to watch HBO. On my phone. We would all lay around. I listened to my music. So I didn't never say that, but with the fasting, that was the biggest thing, was zero energy. And then you experience thirst, and you're totally free to do whatever the heck you want every day, all day. So, we would lie in the backyard on the lounge chairs, look at the clouds and listen to our phones, our music, or we would lie in the bed, and there was a patio. We would lie on the couches on the patio. Once a week, somebody would come in and do some very gentle yoga. Then once a week, each of the doctors did a presentation to the 3 of us, like a private speech just for 3 people, 3-person audience. So that's kind of how the day went. And every Monday, the doctor would load us up. We were all so excited because we were going on a field trip. The doctor would load us up, and we would go into town to a lab, and they would draw blood. And then the next day, the doctor would receive the results and would tell us. And every morning, the doctor comes in and talks to you. And every evening, the doctor comes back in and talks to you. And they want to know, they check your blood pressure, your pulse, your temperature. They say, what's your weight this morning when you weighed? How many hours have you slept? Do you have any questions? Oh, have you experienced any nausea or dizziness? If you have any questions, you can ask them like, yeah, I was just wondering, my skin has been flaky. Is there something I should be concerned about? And the doctor will go into that. And also you have orthostatic hypotension, which is when you stand up too fast, you're like, whoa, or if you're lying down and you sit up too fast, oh God. So you have to sit there for 30 seconds before you take the next step of standing up. And once you stand up, you stand there for 30 seconds minimum before you take your first step. And then you walk very slowly. So I'm sorry to say, those are just some of the other things I wanted to say. And also your refeed is all going to depend on why you're there. So for me, did not have any specific things that, like, I wasn't having digestive issues or anything like that. So my refeed looked one way. My roommates were there for different reasons, and their refeed was 100% different from mine. They did not receive a single raw fruit or vegetable for 4 days. Okay, that's all I got was raw fruits and vegetables for 4 days. So the doctors had their reasons for doing my refeed as raw fruits and vegetables for 4 days. The first day was nothing but juices. My roomies had gently cooked broth, like vegetable broth, salt-free, spice-free, with teeny, tiny little chunks of soft vegetables in it. So their refeed was different. So if you do doctor monitored, the doctors know what they're doing.
Right.
And also, if the doctors look at your blood tests and they'll tell you, okay, your potassium is dropping now to a level that I'm not comfortable with, we need to end your fast right now. Okay. But if you say, I want to end my fast right now, then you end it. And if the doctor says it's time to end your fast because of your blood work or whatever, they end it. So either person can end the fast at any time. Okay. That's the way it works. So those are just some things I wanted to mention. But day 2 of my refeed, my energy went boop. My energy came back after my 1 day of my 3 juices. And so on day 5, I was free, medically released to go into Old San Juan. And I spent my last 4 days every day in San Juan, walking around and being a tourist. So, and then I came home after that. So that's how it went. But you can hear everything on Plant Rich Sandra because I went into everything on that.
Muy bien, señorita. Señora, perdóname.
Señora, so está bien. Okay, so what am I most proud of? The thing that I'm most proud of, as I kind of hinted at earlier, was the fact that this time I made it stick. And I did not put all that weight back on and then some. I did not regress back to my old habits. I changed on the inside. And they say that your challenge is not what's on the plate. It's the 5 inches between your ears. That's the challenge. And
yes and no. Yes. I mean, I agree that your head has to be, but I think the food industry has really done a huge number on us. I mean, they really have modified the food. And I think pretty much since World War II, you started with 1950s, better living through modern chemistry. No. And it has gotten just worse. And the amount of chemicals we're being exposed to in terms of the food, in terms of the environmental toxins, the personal care products. I mean, like, for example, shampoo. Most shampoo has neurotoxins in it. It's like, wait. So you put something in here that's toxic to my brain, and I'm going to use this product on my brain. So I think, there's a lot of the issues that we're dealing with in terms of the toxins. I think also in terms of the food supply and the food, and then the processed food. I mean, it's just it's out of control. And I like, Dr. Furman's book, Fast Food Genocide. I mean, brilliant book. Absolutely amazing. So
yeah, that's right. And there's an old song. There's a group from the South here, from Central Florida, from very near here, called the Bellamy Brothers. And they had a song many, many years ago called He's an Old Hippie. And in that song, they say, one line says, he's growing a garden in the backyard by the fence. He's consuming what he's growing nowadays from self-defense. And it's true. If we grow our own and if we know we're buying healthy, then we are being proactive to protect ourselves and our family from, like you said, all of the chemicals in processed food. And on that note, 3 books I would like to recommend if you're still addicted to sad foods. Okay, if you're addicted to boxed foods like Kraft and General Mills and cereals and stuff, I recommend a book called Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss.
Yep.
Okay. If you still have trouble with restaurants, with going to chain restaurants, and you still are addicted to the stuff that they serve, I recommend a book called The End of Overeating, and I think it's by Dr. Michael Kessler, because he exposes what they do, the chemical engineers, where they the headquarters, and how they create those foods, and they work on the textures and what they put in them, the amount of fat. Yes, the bliss point. And so I recommend that book if you want to get over your handicap for fast food restaurant, not just fast food, but for chain restaurants and things. And then the third book, if you're still addicted to soft drinks, I recommend a book called The Coke Machine. So I just want to say those 3 books will open your eyes, and there'll be an extra line of defense for you to say, I'm not. For me, one thing I'm most proud of is the fact that I finally prioritized my personal health and my weight and stuck with it. And I'm very proud of that I have figured out how to make this sustainable. And so I'm very, very proud of that, because I didn't flunk this time and go back and regress back to old eating habits. And I figured out how to keep this going. And so I feel like I figured out the magic key to do this for the rest of my life, which I never found that magic key before. Okay, so in the second thing that I'm very proud of, because these are dual things that I'm proud of, both equally, is that I seem to be able to inspire and help other people. And so people are constantly contacting me privately and asking me, to help them or to mentor them. I only have one mentee that is somebody that I am her mentor. Of course, anybody that I was already personal friends with, and anybody local says, can you please help me? Yes, because I know them, I love them, I've had a history with them. But as far as somebody new that I didn't know before I got into this, I just have one person.
So can people contact you like on Facebook to get help?
Yes, and on my YouTube channel. But what I do for that, they say, can you please help me? How did you get started? Because I'm struggling with this. Or how did you get over your addiction to blah, 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 because this is my biggest problem? Or how did you deal with your family? And how did you deal with work? And what do you do when you go out to restaurants? And so when people have specific questions, I say, call me and let's talk on the phone. So they'll, and I generally only do that once or twice with somebody, because by then that was their specific question. And so, but what I wanted to do, like I said, in the future was maybe turn it into a business and be a health coach. And then anytime they're not having to like pay me monthly or anything, but if they ever want to call me, they just set it up and call me for when they need me.
Right.
And so that's what I want to do. But one thing I am proud of is the fact that I've had so many people publicly say, I just want to thank Sandra McClanahan for her, fill in the blank, her understanding, her patience, for helping me, for being able to get me over my biggest obstacle. And so I'm very proud of the fact that I'm not judgmental of people in our support groups, because I was there too. And when they say I'm still using salt, I'm still addicted, I get that.
It's like having somebody like who's never dealt with alcoholism running an AA support meeting. You have to have been there. You have to understand what it's like to have that food addiction. Like my husband doesn't have food addiction. He can take a bite of chocolate and put that chocolate away.
God bless him.
And come back, 2 months later and take another bite.
I couldn't do that.
Are you
I could
kidding
not do
me?
that.
No. That chocolate will be gone.
Right, exactly. But so I try to never judge when somebody says something. I don't jump down their throat and say, read the book, Eat to Live. Here's the book. Read the book. Have you read the book? Okay, because this group is for people who have ready to live. So if you're asking that question, obviously you haven't read the book. So go read the book. No.
No, you've got to help people where they are and where they're struggling. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing.
And no judgment, and be patient, because we were there too.
Absolutely.
At one time. So that is the second thing that I'm most proud of, is that people seem to appreciate and value. I seem to be making a difference in people's lives one by one. They seem to be inspired by not only that I've had success, but I've been very honest from day one about my failures. On my personal page, I told myself, I need an accountability partner. I'm just going to use my personal Facebook page, whether my friends like it or not. I'm going to start posting. And anytime I fall off the wagon, I'm going to be honest. And my mom was one day, she was like, you don't have to tell people what you just ate. I'm like, yes, I do. Because I promised myself that I would be honest. So I get on there and I say, here's what I just did, guys.
Well, one of the things I do is I use with my group, the people in the members of the group, I recommend they use an app. It's called See How You Eat. Have you heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So it's fabulous. And there's a free version. They always want you to buy the paid subscription. You don't need it. You can just do the free version. But what it is before you eat, whatever it is you're going to eat all day long, you take a picture of it. And it puts together in kind of like a mural, and what you see, for what you're eating for the whole day. So it really is an eye-opening experience, and if you're deviating, you see it, but you just have to be honest with yourself and say, okay, everything that goes into here, I'm taking a picture of.
Right.
And, there's no judgment, but when you see it and you start to post in the group, it's like, ooh, I better stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we have our big group is 64,000 members. So everybody can't, that's not encouraged in the big group, but in the small
Right.
group, which is
Yeah.
also a subscription group, the Eat to Live Daily, people are encouraged to post pictures of everything they eat in that group too. And
Right.
some of the people have started using an app, kind of like what you're talking about, but it's just called ATE. I
Uh-huh.
think it's just called 8. It's not I8, I think it's 8. When they take the picture, the app will record the time
Yes.
of the picture, and
Yeah.
so there it's kind of like what you're talking about. It's the same
Right.
thing that they're posting that. Yeah, I agree. Using and letting other people be your accountability partner like that,
Exactly.
and being honest is a good idea. Sometimes when people call me and they say, I don't understand why I'm not losing. I'm following Eat to Live, and
Right.
I'm eating. I've cut out blah blah blah. I don't understand. I say, okay, well let's talk about 5 areas that maybe you're not thinking about, and I go through and I say, have you been writing down your portion? So sometimes on the phone, that's their big question is, I don't understand why I'm not losing.
Right.
I seem to be staying the same, even though I'm eating Eat to Live. So when we analyze, we find out the culprits, which is
Right.
usually one too many grains, or they're eating too much dried fruit,
Right.
so yeah.
Caloric density foods.
Right.
Right. So you're more active now. What differences do you see
More active physically.
physically? Yeah.
Okay, so about 2 months into being a nutritarian was when I used to walk and exercise, years ago and all. I was walking a lot. Whenever I lost weight the last 3 times, I was pretty active, during my weight loss and stuff. But when I had hit, between 252 and 227, I wasn't doing anything. But 2 months into being a nutritarian, I suddenly, one day I just woke up and I'm like, I actually now feel like I want to start walking. And I
Right.
had not felt like that yet, and I didn't, because I thought, that he said, no, you don't in the beginning, just focus on the food, making your food
Right.
changes. So I started walking the track, and here in town, the elementary school little track, and I would walk the complex track, and my hips would hurt. At first, my hips would hurt, but I'm like, and then when I get back in my car, I'm like, oh God, and I'd sit down, I'm like, I'm proud of myself, but my hips are really hurting right now. And then after a week or two, my hips stopped hurting, and I started feeling better and better, and I started walking faster. And for me, it started with the walking, and then I joined the gym. And I have a picture of me on day 2 at the gym. I have that picture in my phone. And so I was still, pretty big. Just went from there, and I've done other things since then. I climbed the stadium stairs at my school, with the football stadium. And then whenever I went to Puerto Rico the third time, I had a goal. There was a place, a waterfall that I knew we were only going to be given an hour, and there were 550 steps down, and then you had to turn around and do the 550 steps up, and all they gave us was an hour. And I had been to that waterfall 2 years before, and I didn't even bother because I knew I couldn't do it. At my highest, I knew I couldn't do it. But on this trip, I trained, and I was so scared. But that day we got there, and I'm like, okay, here I go. See ya. And I started walking down, 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 down. I didn't even look at the scenery going down. I just went straight down. When I got down there, I took a few pictures, had some people take my picture, and I turned around and went straight back up. And on the way up, I'm snapping pictures as I'm walking, and I did it in like 45 minutes. I'm like, yeah, 555 steps down and back up. And I was just really proud of myself, but I trained for it. And
Right.
so now that's kind of what I do. And when I went to Peru, I trained, and I did all of that up there in the Andes. I did every single thing that all those teenagers did on that trip. I did every bit of it. And then when we went to Italy, I was walking, I was leading the pack, and staying even ahead of some of the teenagers. And I was eating nutritarian, so all that salty stuff that everybody else was eating, I had none of that. I took my own food, and I worked with the chefs over there to provide me with nutritarian meals, plus my own stuff I took with me. And I never had bloating, never suffered from eating standard American diet food or standard Italian food or whatever. And I felt great the entire trip, and I was very proud of that. But that's kind of what I've been doing physically,
Wow.
And now that we're back, I'm back from, back in school. I'm giving myself one more week of just getting used to all this new cooking that I've been doing and living. I get up at 4 anyway. So from 4 to 5, I'm going to do yoga and stretching here and maybe some weightlifting with just the free weights here in this bedroom, not try to wake her up or anything. And then at 5, I'll start getting ready for the day, go to work, do everything there. And then at 3:45, when the kids leave, I'm going to go straight to the gym and do the endurance training, do my endurance training there, and then get done there and then come home and then cook the meal for me and my mother and have her some fresh food, and cook the stuff that will be for the next day and all that. That's my plan starting next week, is to get back into the endurance, the flexibility.
Just getting back into the school routine.
Yeah.
Summertime, we're kind of, lackadaisical and whatever, but getting back into the routine, it's, yeah. So what are some of your favorite meals?
When I first started trying to make nutritarian soups, they were horrible. They were watery. They didn't taste good. My stove is defective, so I was scalding big old pots of soup, but I ate them anyway because I worked so hard to cut up all those vegetables and I purchased all that. So I was like forcing myself to eat bowl after bowl of scalded soup that tasted disgusting. And then I finally figured out how to actually make stew the way I like it, which is very tomato-y. I add lots of stewed tomato, fresh and boxed salt-free tomatoes and stuff. So now my stews are not soups anymore, they're stew, and they're very, very rich. So I adore my stews. I put my raw onions on top, and I love the raw onions in my stews. So I love that. That's one of my favorite things. And also in Dr. Furman's Quick and Easy, his red carrot and red lentil soup is one of my favorites. And his tofu scramble, there are several things in there that I love. So I love what I call my fruit sorbet, my frozen fruit sorbet with the Vitamix. I love that. And my little beans, I love that.
What advice can you give to those people who are just starting out?
Okay, so I recommend that you figure out, first, like you said, make a list of your whys and read it every day. Read them every day. And I also recommend that you look at yourself in the mirror. When you're starting to struggle and you're like, I just got to go in the kitchen, I got to get something, go to the bathroom, go to your bedroom and look at your own face and look into your own eyes in the mirror and talk to yourself and read your whys out loud and say, okay, Sandra, look, okay, your first why says your granddaughter. Now, what's so important about your granddaughter? Why is she on your list? Oh, yeah, you want to enjoy spending time with her. You want to play on the floor with her and not have to lay on your back because you're a beached whale on the floor with her. You want to get down and play. You want to take her to theme parks. You want to ride rides with her. Someday she's going to be your little traveling buddy, and the two of you are going to go to Paris together. You're going to show her the world. She's your traveling buddy. Are you going to be able to do that at 300 pounds? No. So she is your most important why. Okay. Right. So you read your whys and you talk to yourself. So that's one piece of advice. A second one is let me see, how do I say? Okay. The second one is to find a way to make your transition from SAD to whole food plant-based in a way that you can do it. Okay. That because if maybe you're not the kind that can be totally prepped, ready to go on day one, and you jump in and everything is 100%, even your portion sizes are 100% on day one. Right. Who does that? No. Okay, I didn't.
It's a journey.
Yeah, it's a journey. So I ended up coming up with 5 ways to transition. If anybody's interested, on my channel, Plant Rich Sandra, there's an episode called 5 possible ways to transition from SAD to whole food plant-based way of eating. Think about, which one is good for you. So that's my second recommendation, is pick up a way to transition that will work for you. And if it doesn't work, then change it. Don't stick with it if it's not working. Okay, so that's my second, is to find a way that will work for you to transition. And the third, to have a tribe.
Yeah.
Have a list of people who are doing what you're doing. And at this, if you're in the beginning stages, maybe you know nobody. I didn't know anybody. Okay. I was all by myself. So your people, your tribe might not be anybody that you currently know, any family member. In fact, they may be your saboteurs. Okay. They may be the people who are trying to keep you from doing it. Your best friends, because they have their own personal reasons for making sure that you don't succeed.
Right.
Okay. They have their reasons. So that is my second piece of advice, is find people who are doing already what you want to do and turn them into your buddies and stay connected with them. My next piece of advice is to fill your head, fill your ears, fill your eyes, fill your heart daily with a steady diet of motivational like this interview. Let me ask you this. Is anybody going to need to actually be looking at me and you while they're listening to this interview? No. Okay. We're just sitting here talking. So go do your dishes, go water your plants, drive, take your shower, cook your meals, fold your clothes, and listen to us while you're doing your stuff.
Multitasking.
Okay? Yes. Okay. And most of us are like that. My channel, you don't need to be looking at me. Just listen. Sherry at the Watering Mouth, you don't have to look at her. Just listen. Jean's interviews, just listen. Dr. Furman being interviewed, Dr. Michael Clapper, Dr. Greger, Dr. Barnard. You don't have to watch them giving a speech. Just listen. All these audiobooks, all these podcasts, listen to one every single day. For motivation, education, information. Yes. So that's the second thing.
Educating yourself.
And if you're listening to this right now while you're washing dishes after dinner, are we taking your time? No, we're not taking your time. You would already have been in the kitchen washing your dishes. So we're not taking extra time of yours. And listening to an audiobook, that's not taking extra time. You're doing it while you're doing other things. So I've been listening to Audible for many, many years, back when it was called Books on Tape. And I would listen to books while I was doing other things. So those are my biggest piece of advice.
Well, they are excellent. And
thank you.
You've just had a magnificent journey. And
thanks.
Wow. Thank you so much for taking the time to share. And hopefully you'll inspire other people.
Well, thank you so much, Jean. This has been awesome.
I appreciate all of your insight and your words of wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean, so much. I've really enjoyed this. I hope everybody has a great evening.
Good night.